Is Notre Dame or Penn State good enough to win a national championship? And that means, can they also get past Ohio State or Texas? Tell me about it in the comments below. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. Subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss any of the segments that we upload here each and every day. Like the video, and again, answer the question with a comment below. Do you think that Notre Dame or Penn State is good enough to win a national championship? And I want to take kind of a reasonable look at what it might take to do that. And I want to talk about what we're about to witness on Thursday for the Orange Bowl. So start with this. Notre Dame had an impressive road to get here. Northern Illinois, money in the bag aside, right? They beat an Indiana team that was really, really good this year and only really got beat down by Ohio State, right? Ohio State, we think, is the best team in college football left in this 4-team format, right? Notre Dame also has a really impressive win against Georgia. That's two top 10 opponents that they have knocked off in the first two games of the college football playoff. And it has been, frankly, with Marcus Freeman era linebacking core and Jim Tresselball. Like, they run the football very well. They play really sound defense. They don't take a lot of shots downfield, and they are about their third and shorts, their second and mediums. They get off the line of scrimmage better than anybody else that I've seen outside of Ohio State. Like, they are really firing at all cylinders. 13 wins program record there because they don't really play for conference championships, but that's kind of the point there. It also is a Notre Dame team that might be the best that we have seen in 40 years. I mean that. They won their first major bowl game in 31 years just last night in the Sugar Bowl. And they beat a really great Georgia team to beat it. They beat the SEC champion, which is why we're all already having these discussions about the SEC and whether or not it's being, overwhelmed by Notre Dame and the Big Ten, which is what we have here. We have two Big Ten teams left. We have one SEC team left, and we got an independent. I think the other thing about this that I find funny is Brian Kelly got to be sick because he left Notre Dame to get to LSU because he felt he couldn't win a national championship at Notre Dame given what they're recruiting against and the kind of competition that they're going to face. So he bolts for LSU and has produced a Heisman Trophy winner, 10-win season, played in the SEC championship game, but he has not gotten close, not even close to playing for a national championship at LSU, a thing they have shown they can do without you. They did it with Nick Saban. They did it with Les Miles. They did it with Ed friggin' Orgeron. You would expect them to be able to do it with Brian Kelly. And then Marcus Freeman is elevated into the spot, and at 38 years old, can be the first of, gonna get to that part. We'll get to that part. So we got the Northern Illinois bit, right? And I'm saying, hang the banner if you're Northern Illinois and Notre Dame wins the national championship. I would tongue in cheek here, but you beat them at Notre Dame Stadium, which is something Indiana couldn't do. And you beat them pretty convincingly at their own game, right? Which is run the football and eating the clock and playing sound defense. Thomas Hammock got to be feeling some kind of way about this, but also a tremendous sense of pride with Marcus Freeman being where he is right now. Also need to point out here, because Notre Dame is the billionaire that doesn't pay taxes, there's $14 million that's getting doled out for winning the Sugar Bowl to the conference, right? So if Georgia had won the Sugar Bowl, that's $14 million that the SEC would be able to split. But because Notre Dame ain't a member of a conference, they get to keep the whole $14 million. So it makes the money in the bag that they put toward directional Illinois look like chump change, because it is for Notre Dame. Notre Dame doesn't so much play away games as it barnstorms. They play at NFL stadiums. They play in gimmicky stadiums because they can, right? They can fill them up. They've got a lot of fans that only think about them and only root for them. And we have made this special tax exemption status for them. They don't have to play for a conference championship. We'll still give them a really great seed. We'll still allow them to host a home game, and we'll still give them the road that is Indiana to Georgia. Again, remarkable what they have done, right? I think outside of Ohio State, they played the toughest road to get here, which is another reason why if I am Penn State, I'm a little bit shook. Now, the defense runs Penn State. That's what they are about, right? 6 interceptions in 2 playoff games, and they are able to stop a 2,600-yard rusher in Ashton Jeanty to the tune of 3.5 yards per carry. And that was without Abdul Carter for most of the game. Whether or not he plays in the Orange Bowl, we'll wait and see. That's what it is. But I do know this. He went out injured after trying to tackle Ashton Jeanty, who, while didn't win, right? I don't think it wasn't about him, it was about Boise State, right? It was that defense was just not going to let Maddox Madsen do what he'd been able to do to everybody else, which is when you put 7 or 8 in the box, he's been able to throw the football down the field. Wasn't able to do that against that really stout Tom Allen-led Penn State defense. That's the strength of what they do. On offense, the law firm of Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, Allen and Singleton, is averaging 7 yards per carry in the playoffs, right? They both have rushed for over 800 yards. That is how they are able to win football games. They play sound defense and they run the ball effectively and they eat the clock. You're not going to get that many possessions against this team. In that case, the game that Notre Dame just played against Georgia is probably the kind of game that we're going to see. Low scoring, lots of running the football, and it's going to come down to coaches making a play. Marcus Freeman made a play against Georgia. I mean, that substitution on the punt that wasn't, and then the delayed clap, my God, that was gorgeous. I loved every bit of that. That was fun. And you know what? That is Marcus Freeman absolutely, positively being in his bag. Like, he had this thing. And as the referees were trying to steal it from both teams, it felt like Notre Dame was able to just sit on Georgia's chest. They go up by 2 scores, and they are effectively able to bleed Georgia out. Couldn't run the football and was that offensive line was getting harassed every step of the way. You also have what I think is low-key an X factor here. Mitch Jeter is 4 of 4 for Notre Dame, kicking 40 yards or more this postseason. When you look at what Bert Auburn isn't at Texas, right, and you look at what the kicking has been like with Fielding and even a couple of years ago with Ruggles at Ohio State, you got to feel good about what it is that you have if you got to go kick a field goal and you're Notre Dame. How Ohio State, and for that matter, Texas, don't have the best field goal kicker in the country always will escape me. Like, Graham Nicholson wasn't that great this year, but I would have gone and gotten him anyway. So now that we know this, right, we're looking at who could win this and how. I think it's really going to be about turnovers. The fact of the matter is Notre Dame played turnover-free football. They were not giving you the ball on the floor as much as they tried or throwing the ball to other people, which Riley Leonard did not. Georgia did. And if it comes down to turnovers, that's who's going to win. Now, turnovers is an unpredictable stat. That's why it always kind of feels like a cop-out to say it's about who doesn't turn the ball over, but it's often true. So if you are watching the game and you're looking at what y'all look at the live line and whatnot as it's going, it'll probably be influenced most by who's turning the ball over and who's not, who can capitalize on those turnovers. To say nothing to special teams once again, I mentioned kick return for touchdown. The kicker. I did not mention the kick return for touchdown by Jaden Harrison, which broke open the game for Notre Dame in a very real way. I think for James Franklin, you're going to have to somehow find a way for Drew Aller to do something that I just don't think he's capable of doing. Throw the football all over the yard and run around and be a menace that way. Like, that dude is as close to a Josh Allen comparison as we could make in this college football playoff, only because he's big, he's strong, he can move, he's got a dart for an arm. If he's accurate and you give him a little time, maybe he can do something, but Andy Kotelnick is going to have to not be so cute. Throw the ball to Ty Warren, throw the ball to Trey Wallace, and let Nick Singleton and Katron Allen suck people up so you get these play-action passes that you could force downfield. That's going to be a lot of fun, I think. All right. I think I'm going to hit at this, but it's at the back end of the segment, and you let me know what you think below. It is historic to me that we're going to have a black head coach lead a team into the national championship game for the first time. 155 years we've been playing this sport. It's the first time it's ever happened. Guaranteed it because we got 2 black head coaches at 2 blue blood programs, Penn State and Notre Dame. I know what Marcus Freeman is about because I've been following Marcus Freeman since he was defensive coordinator at Cincinnati for Luke Fickell and go all the way back to even looking at what he was doing at Ohio State. James Franklin has been a little bit more difficult to nail down on this, right? Like, for instance, Marcus Freeman would show up to the Black Minority Head Coaches Symposiums and just talk to coaches that are on the way up, coaches at D3, coaches D2. I know because I'm a member and I would be in some of those Zoom conversations, and he would just give his wisdom. And I loved it. Like, there were things like, you should always be inquisitive. You should always be asking questions. You're going to get told off. More often than not, you're going to get told off. It's going to be like, hey, coach, why did we do this? Hey, can you just coach the safeties? Can you get out of my face? Can you just coach the safety? Yeah, coach. And you keep doing that because it shows you're engaged, right? And it's a lot of the hard coaching that we get, right? Like, it's when you're being mentored, your mentor probably treats you some kind of way. That's just how it goes. None of this information is free. You are going to pay for it, either with some chewings and some gophering, but that's the culture of being a coach, right? Like, you come up as a grad assistant being a coffee boy, and then you work your way up. And that's just how the institution works. So for a guy like Marcus Freeman to do that at Notre Dame as a head coach, tremendously big deal. James Franklin is black. He counts himself as black. I count him as black. His father's black. His father was Air Force. He eloped with a nice lady named Josie to Ireland. They came back to Philadelphia. And he was mostly raised by his mom following a divorce, but in Pennsylvania, right? I think mom lived in Philly, dad lived in Pittsburgh, but he's got family in Pittsburgh who are mostly black. And even his aunt was the assistant dean of engineering at Howard. So the bona fides be there. But also, he said something in 2019 that I think is going to get a lot of play right now because of the moment that we're in, but I'm going to repeat it to you because it's important. When HBO did their 24/7 with Penn State in 2019, he let down the guard just a little bit to talk about what it means for him to be black and a black head coach at Penn State. He said, I don't usually talk about this publicly, but my goal is to be the first African-American football coach to win a national championship. I didn't know he had that in him. Those of y'all that don't know, I wrote a book about the Tulsa Race Massacre for the centennial. My grandmother is civil rights royalty. She's secretary treasurer of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party when they challenged the Democratic National Convention when they were insulted by some seats. She is civil rights royalty. She's the jewel of my family. She sued the state of Mississippi for voting rights, and she won. And she was blackballed for it. She was a single mom who owned her own beauty salon in the 1960s. Tiny woman, soft-spoken, kind to everyone all the time. I grew up being Jean's grandbaby with my little sister around Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Tulsa came later. And then I moved to Tulsa, and it becomes my home. I'm 13 years old. And I am almost immediately hit with the Tulsa Race Massacre and what had happened here. Again, book is out there if you want to read it. It's called Requiem for the Massacre, nominated for an NAACP Image Award. But being black and being a national commentator in this sport has always meant the world to me because I love this sport. And more than half of the kids that play look like me. And that's just not true of the coaches. It's just not true. I realize that there's a group of people that watch this show that didn't come here for this expressly, but I hope you will give me the space here to be emotional about it because it's emotional. I didn't think James Franklin wanted that. I know he wanted a national championship. Everybody wants it. I want a national championship. I didn't know that he wanted that. It's one thing for folks to push you out, like we pushed Sharon Moore out last year, because he is the first black head coach at Michigan, although he did go to the University of Oklahoma and graduate in 2007. I still think Ohio State's going to win the national championship. That's the best football team in America. It is. They got the juice. They got the guys. But if nothing else, I hope this moment that comes with the Orange Bowl is one you don't just pass over, is one you don't just gloss over or say race doesn't matter. It does. I know that you don't want it to. Many of us don't, but it does. Culture matters. That's part of what makes this country great. I mean, I just told you about my grandmother. My parents both served in the military here. They're Air Force veterans. My mother's an officer. She is Gene's daughter. Like, my mother was raised integrating schools. I need you to let that be. I need you to acknowledge that. Fist bump in the comments if that's what you got to do. But I need you to know that Marcus Freeman or Penn and James Franklin are going to get whole hearts from a lot of folks that make this national championship game. Again, I still think Ohio State's going to win it. I think Ohio State's going to beat Texas like a drum. But maybe Notre Dame and Penn State are good enough. Maybe they can do that. Maybe James Franklin can overcome this record of not really beating teams that have a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1 next to their name, but one time in his career at Penn State. Maybe Marcus Freeman can turn a team that lost to a G5 program at home into the one that wins a national championship at Notre Dame. Bring something home for the first time since 1988. I know y'all think 94 is yours, but it's not. Sit with it for a while. That's all I'm asking. Sit with it for a while. And if you still want to tell me to go to hell, tell me to go to hell. But sit with it and know that I'll be smiling either way.